So the 80s gave us leg warmers, synth pop, and film critics who apparently watched completely different movies than the rest of us. While reviewers were handing out stars like candy, regular folks walked out of theaters wondering what planet these people lived on. Something about that decade created a perfect storm where critical darlings became audience nightmares. Popeye strapped Robin Williams into silicone prosthetic forearms so stiff and heavy they looked like misshapen Muppet arms on camera, forcing production to halt, while a team in Rome rushed latex replacements with individual hairs threaded inside for realism. As Williams sweated through early scenes hidden under a raincoat nobody could explain to confused extras. His mumbling sailor rows into Sweet Haven's rickety harbor searching for a father who abandoned him, rents a room from Shelley Duvall's impossibly lanky Olive Oil, a woman caught in an engagement she doesn't want, protects a mysterious baby whose psychic gambling powers attract dangerous attention, and battles Paul Smith's brutish Bluto through barroom brawls and high seas chaos while falling for Olive in a courtship neither expected. If you've ever watched a relationship form in the middle of absolute chaos, where nothing makes sense, but somehow two people find each other anyway, that's the heart buried under all the weirdness. The set partied so heavily that Williams later said everyone was on everything but roller skates, with director Robert Altman vanishing to casinos and leaving the star adrift on musical numbers recorded live without any playback. Duvall relocated to what Williams dubbed Stalag Altman, her untrained voice shredding on rapid songs while executives questioned whether her look even suited the role. The prosthetics restricted movement so severely that Williams needed retraining in tap, his mumbled ad-libs requiring extensive recording because nobody could understand what he was saying through the pipe and squint. The Sweet Haven set still stands on Malta as a tourist attraction, proof that some productions become cult oddities precisely because everything went catastrophically sideways. September found Mia Farrow, drawing from deep personal vulnerability for a role about suicidal despair, the emotional weight compounding across a production that Woody Allen decided to reshoot entirely with partially different casts because the first version didn't capture suffering correctly. Farrow's Lane retreats after trying to end her life, seeking peace in her family's country home, peace that evaporates when her narcissist actress mother arrives unannounced with a new husband. Her married friend Stephanie shows up escaping her own crumbling life, and the struggling writer Lane's fallen for starts pursuing Stephanie instead through candlelit power outages and late-night confessions that expose everyone's loneliness. If you've ever loved someone who wanted your friend instead while your family made everything worse just by existing in the same room, Lane's quiet devastation will feel like watching your own worst memories performed by strangers. Elaine Stritch clashed constantly over her lines and improvisations, the tension between her Broadway instincts and Allen's controlled vision, creating friction that bled into scenes where mother-daughter hostility felt uncomfortably real. Diane Wiest channeled her own post-divorce rawness into the adultery subplot, the emotional boundaries between cast and characters dissolving as everyone navigated material that cut close to their actual lives. Allen's dissatisfaction ran so deep that the reshoot strained Farrow's trust in ways that would echo through their catastrophic personal fallout years later. Critics exalted the performances as career-best Chekhovian work, while audiences found the introspection suffocating, the film surviving as that rare artifact where making it clearly hurts so much you can't tell if you're watching fiction or people processing genuine pain through their characters. Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome strapped Tina Turner into heavy wigs and leather armor in extreme Australian heat, the costume trapping temperatures that left her battling dehydration across 12-hour shooting days while the Outback tried to kill everyone equally. Producer Byron Kennedy died in a plane crash mid-production, and Mel Gibson started drinking heavily, clashing with co-director George Ogilvy. While grief collapsed, the crew's morale and Warner Bros. Executives invaded editing, demanding PG-13 softness. Max stumbles into Bartertown after thieves strip him of everything, makes a deal with Turner's auntie entity to fight her enemies in a suspended cage under the rule of 2 men enter and 1 man leaves, wins but refuses to kill, gets exiled strapped backwards on a horse, and wakes among feral children worshipping a dead pilot's promise of paradise. They call tomorrow Morrowland, their faith unshaken despite zero evidence their savior ever existed. If you've ever felt caught between doing what powerful people demand and doing what your gut knows is right, Max's impossible choice in that cage captures something real about the cost of keeping your soul intact. Angelo Rosito endured the Master Blaster costume in punishing heat, the suit's weight and confinement testing his limits through stunt sequences that pushed the veteran actor harder than anything in his long career. Turner bonded with Gibson over shared misery as reshoots piled up and studio interference jammed her pop ballad into the soundtrack against Miller's protests. Critics praised the world building, while audiences who grew up on Road Warrior walked out feeling betrayed. The franchise stranded between the savagery fans craved and the sanitized safety Hollywood was learning to manufacture. Never Say Never Again waved $3 million at Sean Connery, until the man who spent a decade trashing Bond as a gilded prison climbed back into the tuxedo, proving that retirement vows dissolve pretty quickly when the zeros multiply. His grouchier 007 gets pulled from retirement when Spectre steals nuclear warheads, chasing the weapons across Bahamas hideouts while seducing Kim Basinger's Domino, a woman trapped in her own gilded cage as the villain's mistress, who doesn't know her brother was murdered, to make the whole plot possible. Bond uncovers Domino's loss and uses it to flip her loyalty, their romance building, through underwater encounters and casino tension, toward a climax in Largo's underwater lair, where she finally gets revenge. If you've ever watched someone realize the life they're living was built on lies they were never supposed to discover, Domino's awakening carries genuine weight beneath the explosions. Legal battles with Eon Productions hung over every decision, with Connery chain-smoking between takes and radiating visible contempt through scenes while the production existed in legal limbo nobody could resolve. Basinger navigated challenging underwater sequences while negotiating against nude scenes, despite studio pressure to maximize her presence. Klaus Maria Brandauer went full method, unnerving Connery with improvised intensity during their confrontations and pushing back when script cuts softened his villain. Director Irvin Kershner mediated constantly between Connery's impatience and everyone else's exhaustion. Critics appreciated Connery's grizzled charm, while audiences felt like they'd bought an expensive knockoff, the film surviving as an artifact, where the star's obvious disinterest somehow made the performance more compelling than anything the screenplay provided. Down and Out and Beverly Hills pulled Nick Nolte from immersion among actual homeless people, absorbing their survival tactics and worn gazes until he carried that authenticity onto set, preserving the character's grime and refusing to let the performance feel polished. Nolte's drifter Jerry wades into a millionaire's pool, intent on drowning himself after losing his dog and everything else worth living for, gets pulled out by Richard Dreyfuss's guilt-ridden coat-hanger tycoon who can't understand why anyone would die when swimming pools exist, and proceeds to upend the household by sleeping with Bette Midler's shopping-addicted wife, romancing the maid, coaxing the closeted son toward self-acceptance, and somehow curing the neurotic family dog through chaotic presence. If you've ever watched someone walk into a situation they don't belong in and accidentally expose how hollow everyone's happiness actually was, Jerry's disruption hits different. Dreyfuss clashed with director Paul Mazursky over satirizing Reagan-era wealth, halting takes to argue rewrites while Midler sided with Mazursky, and production ground into standstills. Nolte's method commitment ran so deep it isolated him from the cast, sparking whispers that his intensity was fueling personal struggles that wouldn't surface publicly for years. Little Richard brought explosive energy as the flamboyant neighbor, his piano performances and impromptu sermons about fame fitting his larger-than-life persona perfectly. Critics praised Nolte's authenticity as smart satire, while test audiences found his character too unsettling to embrace, the film surviving as that rare comedy where the chaos behind cameras matched the chaos on screen so precisely that nobody could tell which was the performance and which was something real or bleeding through. Married to the Mob gave Michelle Pfeiffer a tour through Long Island mob wife authenticity, the production consulting on details that made the world feel lived in while she navigated a character desperate to escape everything that world represented. Pfeiffer's Angela DeMarco suffocates in mob wife purgatory where the hair towers high and husbands cheat constantly, where every neighbor knows exactly what your family does for money but nobody says it out loud. And when Tony the Tiger murders her husband for sleeping with the wrong woman, she grabs her kid and flees to Manhattan hoping a beauty salon job erases everything. Except Tony decides he's in love with her now, and the FBI moves an undercover agent next door who falls for her too, trapping Angela between the life she's fleeing and surveillance she doesn't know exists. If you've ever tried escaping a situation only to realize the new situation comes with its own invisible chains, Angela's predicament captures that suffocation perfectly. Pfeiffer shifted from glamour to paranoia, staying in character to maintain Angela's edge through scenes involving staged violence that pushed her outside her comfort zone, while cast members, portraying mafia wives, brought energy that felt personal. Director Jonathan Demme wanted nuance but clashed with actors pushing for broader laughs, particularly Mercedes Ruehl, who fought fiercely for screen time, sparking rewrites through friction nobody planned. Critics celebrated Pfeiffer's layered work, while audiences found the comedy-crime balance uneven. The film stranded as a cult favorite, proving that mob movies work better when everyone agrees what they're making before the cameras roll. The Cotton Club hemorrhaged past $50 million, while Francis Ford Coppola and producer Robert Evans waged war over a prohibition epic neither could control. Rewrites and reshoots fracturing whatever vision existed as the budget spiraled and tensions mounted daily. Richard Gere's cornet player Dixie saves the wrong mobster's life and gets pulled into Dutch Schultz's orbit, while falling for Diane Lane's dangerous mall. The storyline paralleling Gregory Hines' tap dancer Sandman, a man chasing chorus girl Leela Rose through Harlem's legendary club where black performers dazzled white-only crowds in sequin splendor, then exited through back doors into alleys that smelled like broken promises. If you've ever worked somewhere your talent was celebrated, but your presence was barely tolerated, Sandman's navigation of that contradiction resonates far beyond the period setting. Jura wrestled with moral ambiguity, privately frustrated when editing scenes that gave Dixie depth, leaving him stranded as a romantic lead in a movie too busy imploding to serve as romance. Hines confronted the production's racial dynamics head-on, feeling the weight of portraying a black artist navigating opportunity and prejudice, while the film drowned authenticity in melodrama that kept interrupting his electrifying tap numbers. Coppola described the shoot as crippling, his exhaustion visible in a final cut that critics praised for ambition, while audiences wandered out confused by the sprawl. The film exists as proof that some productions collapse into something more fascinating to read about than experience, a beautiful disaster you can admire from a distance without ever wanting to sit through again. True Confessions opened on a prostitute's body, cut in half in a vacant lot, then asked Robert De Niro and Robert Duvall to circle each other as brothers on opposite sides of the investigation, the Monsignor and the detective grinding toward collision without a single car chase to break the moral weight pressing down on every frame. De Niro's Desmond Spelliscy climbs church hierarchy, managing real estate deals with donors whose money smells wrong, while Duvall's Tom works the murder, the case threading through corrupt tycoons funding Desmond's projects until family loyalty and institutional rot collide in confessionals that feel like interrogations where forgiveness isn't available. If you've ever watched family members choose different paths and then spend decades cataloging resentments neither will name out loud, these brothers circling captures that exhausting dance perfectly. De Niro attended actual services at the Los Angeles Archdiocese, studying Monsignors, immersing himself in the rituals and responsibilities to deepen spiritual conflict in a character torn between ambition and genuine faith. Duvall shadowed real homicide detectives on night patrols and crime scene inspections, his willingness to inhabit moral ambiguity, creating weight that bled into scenes where the brothers couldn't look at each other without years of history surfacing. Director Udo Grosbard clashed with executives who wanted conventional thrills, reworking endings while depicting institutional corruption, sparked difficult conversations on set. Critics praised both leads for performances that transcended the genre, while audiences expecting noir mystery got meditative tragedy instead. The film stranded as prestige cinema that understood how power protects itself at any cost, long before that became impossible to avoid reading about every morning.